Hi y'all. My name is Liz Hauk, and I'm one of the owners of Expand Yoga in Tacoma, Washington. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to a Vinyasa flow, if that is something you might be interested in. We sometimes get calls from people saying, like, I want to come, but I want to know what to do before I come. And usually we tell people, oh, just come, and that way you'll figure it out as you go. And I still think that that's the best advice, because there's nothing like doing it with other people. You get to look around, you get to see what other people are doing. But for those of you who want to just kind of see it a couple times first, here you go. So oftentimes we'll start class in a child's pose position. So a child's pose is meant to be a way of getting kind of into your body. I think of it as coming home. I think of it as, you know, when you've been away all day and you've been doing everything out in the world, and then you come home and you turn the lights on and you see what's going on inside. I think of child's poses a lot like that. Right, so when you come into child's pose, your knees can be together. That'll give you a little more support in your back, but less space. Or you can have your knees a little bit wide, or even a lot wide, which then gives your ribs more room. It'll also change the position of your pelvis a little bit, because when your knees are together, your pelvis is slightly more tucked. When your knees are wide, you're in a little bit more of a back bending shape. You can have your elbows down, you can let your arms come out long, and you want to find a way of being very comfortable here. Right? So it's not a posture that you want to sit in pain in. When I first started practicing, I'd had knee surgery, and it really hurt my knee to be kneeling like this. So it would have been helpful to have something like a blanket or just a little lift between the calf and the thigh. So feel free to do that for yourself if you need to. I'm just going to come on into it. And in child's pose, we'll often start with something called a Ujjayi breath. Right? You don't have to start it here, but it's oftentimes used to build heat as you move through a Vinyasa style practice. The easiest way I know to set it up is to think of exhaling out your mouth like you're trying to fog a mirror, like and you lightly close your lips and do the same thing out your nose, so it sounds like a. So there's a soft restriction in the back of your throat, and you start to let your inhales and your exhales travel in and out the same way. You build a little bit of heat, right, kind of come inside. And then from your child's pose, we'll move into a tabletop position. So with your hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. Give yourself the best form you can. And a few cat-cow tilts. So cat is curling your tail under, looking towards your belly button, pressing your spine towards the ceiling. Cow, lifting your hips, your gaze, your belly long, gazing forward. And coming into flexion and extension. And then seeing if you can let your breath take you through that pattern. Right. After that, somewhere we'll probably do some other stuff, but eventually coming into downward facing dog. One of our teachers, Patrick, he jokes, I have a $20,000 downward facing dog, because you really could spend a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money on trying to figure out how to do downward facing dog in the best way. One of the major pieces of information that I think is important for new people to know is that they want to get their weight out of their upper body and back into the lower body. So not a whole lot of weight in your hands and shoulders. Still, there's going to be a good amount, but not that much. And the knuckles at the base of the index finger and second finger, really having those rooted on the ground. So fingers spread wide enough that you see some space between each one. Wrist creases parallel, maybe slightly turned out. Right, fingers slightly squeezing the mat so that you're not collapsing your carpal tunnel or letting your hands kind of collapse. Right, trying to keep your hands active on the mat. You get to curl your toes under, inhale your sitting bones up and back, and come into an upside down V shape. So sitting bones rising, right, heels dropping, arms long. You can bend your elbows, roll your shoulders away from your ears, get lifting your hips up and back. When people are newer to it, they tend to have too much weight in their upper body, so their shoulders tend to be shifted forward. You want to think of shifting your shoulders back towards your ankles. Over time, sometimes people overdo that. They start to kind of collapse into their back and into their shoulders instead. Instead of collapsing into your shoulder joints, try to think of a wrapping, like your armpits are going to wrap around and in towards your ears. This ends up being a really fun place to be, I find, right? So if you think of a dog and downward facing dog, they're usually, having fun. They're usually in a good mood. You want your neck really relaxed, right? Your jaw long, right? Or jaw relaxed, right? Arms long.
Inhale your sitting bones rising, exhaling as your heels drop. Your legs do not need to be straight. Your heels do not need to be on the mat. In fact, if they can touch all the way down, maybe try lifting your hips up a little bit higher. Right? Draw your belly in so your ribs don't collapse down towards the ground. Right? And then let your upper body lengthen. So lengthen space to your spine is almost always a good idea. Okay, so we might do some other stuff from there, but for now, let's just roll into an upward plank position. All right, legs really strong behind you, collarbones broad. I'm just going to show you the whole flow first, and then we'll break it down. You take an inhale. Exhale, lower elbows, graze your ribs as you lower. Inhaling, roll over your toes, lift your chest. All right, think of being long through your spine. Then following your breath back to your downward facing dog. All right, so to break it down, you come into a plank position, and for now I'm just going to bring my knees down to the mat. You want your shoulder blades on your back, so oftentimes the ribs will want to kind of drop as you lower down. Instead, try to push the floor away. Again, palms stay active, gaze forward. Take an inhale, and then just lower with your elbows grazing right against your side body, and press back up. Okay, now that's not that easy, right? It's easier than not having your knees down, but it's not that much easier, a little bit, right? So feel free to do it that way if you want to. If you can't do this movement right here, you could just slide down, right? You could just lay your whole body down like a little baby cobra on the ground. So that's another option. But let's just say that you are going to do a push-up, right? You would take an inhale, exhale, lower, heads of your shoulders look forward, and press back up. Now, if you're taking your knees up off the mat, you really don't want your hips popping up or dropping down, right? So just think of yourself like you're one straight line. Sometimes it helps to use a mirror, right? Take an inhale, exhale, lower halfway down, and press straight back up. Okay, so that's the kind of the first movement is that lowering part, right? So looking forward, take an inhale, exhale, lower halfway down, and then for now, let's lower all the way down to the ground so we can get into the back bend next. Right, the back bending part is this upward facing dog. Right, so you can think of your shoulders rolling around, down and back, and then peeling yourself up away from the mat. Right, so it's an inhale, and you rise. Right, so the inhaling is helping to create length and space through your spine. Or you can think of inhaling from the floor of your pelvis, so even the arches of your feet, right, all the way up. Right, letting the tips of your ears rise, your pelvis staying rooting down. So you're trying to lengthen through your back. My hands are pulling the mat back and then lowering all the way down. Okay, so you notice that my pelvis was still on the ground. You could absolutely do it that way, and that's a nice way to do it because it keeps your pelvis really stable. So if you do have any low back stuff going on, sometimes having the ground beneath the bony points of your pelvis can really help, and you don't end up just doing anything funky if you're a little out of balance in your sacroiliac joint or anything like that. But let's say that you are coming up into an upward facing dog, right? I'm going to curl my toes under, lift up, inhaling, rolling up. Now you'll notice my thighs are a little bit up off the mat. That's not necessarily true for everyone, but it's pretty common. Right, your triceps by your sides, elbows in, a little bend to your elbows so your arms are not locked straight. And then as you inhale, you can imagine like the tips of your ears could rise. You don't want to collapse your neck all the way back, right? So there's length to your entire spine here. And then you can curl your toes back under, right? Lift your hips up and back, press the floor away, and come back to your downward facing dog. I notice I tend to walk my feet in just a little bit, right, every time. Right? This just gives me a little bit more ground. Other people keep them back. That's a really long downward facing dog for me. If you find that you have too much weight in your hands, wrists, and shoulders, you could walk your feet in a little bit closer and closer and closer till, you're just kind of like hanging out in it. Or you might need to bend your knees at some point, right? But this is like a variation, right? I'm not recommending that you do this forever, but if it's too much at the beginning, right, definitely you could bring some more weight into your legs and you still be kind of getting some nice length to your spine. Your head is still below your heart, right? Your hips are high, you're getting nice hip crease. You could always bend your knees more if your hamstrings are tight. What you don't want to end up doing is just torturing yourself by being here the whole time when you're kind of wanting to be all the way back here. It makes it way easier. Right, so in your downward facing dog, you could inhale your hips high, roll your shoulders over your wrists, find the upward push-up plank, right? Lower with your knees down or not. Then use your toes, pressing to your feet, right? Rolling into your upward facing dog, and then curling your toes under, lifting from the hollow of your low belly up and back, pressing the floor away like your arms start all the way back at your hips, and you're reaching long through your arms. Again, inhaling, rolling forward. Exhale, you could use your knees lower down. Inhale, rising up, long spine. You could press back through your knees, curl your toes, and lift yourself back into your downward facing dog. Okay, so let's do it one more time. Inhale, shoulders over wrists. Exhale, lowering down. Inhale to rise. And back to downward facing dog. All right, so if you come to almost any vinyasa class, right, anywhere that I know of, right, you're likely to do something along that pattern. So that's just a little heads up on what you could expect. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in class soon.